Short, stinky fish, rat, gecko, wormy, gremlin.
Gorilla, gorilla, gorilla.
I swear to God, if you keep that in the video, Goji
What
Center.
if we
Bingo
so
card!
can 100 humans beat one gorilla?
Oh, if it was 100 construction workers, the construction workers win. I've seen some of those arms.
So, for this scenario, we'll fix that.
Oh, the humans win. You've heard of Florida, man. I don't think it takes 100. I think it takes 20 or 30. They're just like, ah!
Men versus one gorilla.
Hi, YouTube. Okay, we're gonna watch this one. And, I've been told by my editor I'm going to scream Vindication, so I already enjoy. They already get a like.
It shouldn't even be a debate, bro. The gorilla is winning every single.
Who would win in a fight, a gorilla or 100 men?
Everyone keeps saying the gorillas would win, but actually the men would win.
Who would win in a fight out of 100 men and a gorilla? I can't even believe I'm answering this, but
100%. 100 men can take down a silverback.
I think I can take one.
600 pounds.
600 pounds?
100 dudes could take one single gorilla.
Well, that certainly was not a question we had on our 2025 bingo card.
Bingo
so,
card!
Can 100 humans beat one gorilla?
Goji
What
Center.
if we tenfold ourselves against just one of our most powerful living relatives? Today at Goji Center, we are going to tackle this bizarre subject that has been sending shockwaves through the internet and see what kind of scenarios we can cook up. If you're curious to see what the horrible aftermath will be, then stay tuned, because
What needs to be done is, I don't know if a lot of you people, what we need to see is, if anyone remembers Deadliest Warrior, you know, where they would put two fighters from history into the fights and stuff. We need that of this. I still wish Deadliest Warrior kept going. Or we put they re-randomized it and had other fights go against each other.
no matter who wins today,
because I feel like Deadliest Warrior would give us the really appropriate answer.
Get ugly. The way we are going to approach this is by first stating that no matter how you look at it, this isn't a yes or no answer. There are different factors that come into play that may heavily dictate the inevitable bloody outcome. Therefore, we will look at this from 3 different perspectives, 3 scenarios, 3 fights. This funny scenario is fictional because it involves animal and human behavior as well as some serious safety concerns. 100 rational people are not about to decide to throw caution out the window and bum rush the most powerful primate on the planet. And fighting a human, let alone a horde of them, is just about the last thing a gorilla wants.
Yeah, that I love that a lot of people bring that up. Of course the gorilla doesn't want to fight 100 humans. But if the humans are dedicated to that shit, I feel like it's fair to make it where the gorilla's dedicated. They're smart. They're not dumb.
Gorillas are actually quite peaceful herbivores in most scenarios, but they and other apes are pretty perceptive. Just like them, humans have 2 arms, 2 legs, opposable thumbs, no tail, smell, and sound like them.
That was pretty cool.
To some degree. Essentially speaking, gorillas can tell that we're apes too and don't see us as a threat most of the time. Just weird-looking neighbors. That said, they can get especially violent and are pretty well aware of what weaknesses we have. Sum that knowledge up with strength incomparable to that of a human, and you have a perfect recipe for disaster. To test this scenario out and to make an educated analysis for today's episode, we found a brave volunteer who was willing to be our crash test dummy. Meet Riot, a YouTuber who kindly accepted our proposal to be cloned 99 times and lead the charge against the gorilla. But who exactly? To make this a more realistic scenario, we're going to use a full-grown male gorilla, given that they are the most sexually dimorphic of all apes, and Riot is a gentleman who wouldn't want to throw hands with a lady. To juice up our simulations with the required data,
I do feel like that's an unfair comparison. 100 of a semi-fit guy is going to do very well.
Start with the stats. We'll use one of the largest gorillas ever recorded, since it is going up against a monumental pile of human. This one, recorded in 1938 from the secluded misty mountains of Kivu. with an upright stance of almost 2 meters or 6.2 inches tall, and tipping the scales at about 220 kilos or 490 pounds. This massive ape towered over most people, despite apes having typically short legs for their body size. Other potential records show some wild males of multiple species of gorilla could break 250 to 260 kilograms. That's over a quarter of a ton. Waiting in line for our next scenario is someone who might ring a bell. As for a ridiculous meme, we might as well have a ridiculous amount of audacity. So, humanity's opponent will be one of the most notorious apes in history, whose fame was by no means intentions of his own. One of the most infamous former residents of the Cincinnati Zoo and named after Rita Marley's song, Harambe, back for revenge and eager to take it out on the human race. Standing at 5'10" and weighing 440 pounds, Harambe was, or for this test, is a western lowland gorilla. This species was perhaps destined for eternal memedom, as the scientific name for this species is, and no, we're not making this up.
Well, he's a fit guy, so he does workouts and stuff off stream, most likely. So
Gorilla, gorilla, gorilla. At about 17 years old, Harambe would have been at his physical prime. So, what will our gorillas bring into the battle? Well, let's begin by clearing the air here with setting the record straight with the bite. You may have heard the bite force of 1300 psi. This kind of chomping pressure would be greater than the vast majority of even larger land carnivores, like some gigantic brown bears, twice as heavy as the great apes. And, well, this metric is just not quite accurate.
it's like 1050 or something.
We'll be citing a study published by the American Journal of Anthropology, which looked into the anatomy and workings of ape jaws, including humans. So this will come in handy. The study found that the actual biting pressure for a gorilla was substantially smaller, with a total muscle force of 4,000 newtons distributed across the molars at around 527 pounds per square inch. Still more than enough to bite through bamboo like we would carrots. But if this was focused on these enlarged canine things that slide past each other in a self-sharpening motion, the pressure increases to around 1,179 psi. Now, granted, Harambe was an above-average-sized gorilla, so it is possible his chomping numbers were higher than the average studied individuals in the study. But we'll play safe and round up to the flat number of 4,100 newtons, 530 psi at the molars, and 1,200 on the canines. Believe it or not, during a fight to the death, leveraging our own chompers can prove lethal. It is admittedly an unorthodox method of dispatching an enemy, but it is inevitably and very likely that at least one of our clones will resort to deploying the pearly whites in the midst of close quarter combat. For this episode, we asked Riot to provide some specs regarding his own mandibles to get an educated guess on whether or not this bite will make a dent on a gorilla this massive. Other members of the homini, such as Australopithecus, had fairly impressive bite forces despite their small size. Homo sapiens are an example of sacrificed jaw strength to allow the skull to give more room to our own primary weapon, the brain. Factoring metrics taken from multiple men and our friend Riot, his biting force would be approximately, at an above average, 835 newtons or 198 psi at full crunch. That said, biting may be the very last thing our brave friend wants to do, given the gape of a human skull is so much smaller than a gorilla's, and seemingly Riot lacks any fangs to puncture into the ape's fur and skin. Biting the neck might result in breaking the jaw from overextending if the gorilla thrashed and yanked. We'll add this info into our simulation and move on to the other two weapons our gorillas will bring into the mosh pit. Gorilla strength is something that is widely exaggerated, with some hearsay statements that make it sound like the apes are from Krypton rather than the Congo and heft around 10 times their body weight. The reality is that gorillas do have a lot more upper body strength than humans due to large muscle density and fast twitch muscles, much more mass on the arms, and more rigid joints to maximize.
That's what I was about to say. I'm pretty sure that maybe they're not as strong as some people claim, but I'm pretty sure they're still pretty strong.
Strength at the cost of some dexterity. The reason we can't easily lift up stuff many times our body weight is the same reason they cannot throw objects as well and manipulate tools as easily as we can. Gorillas don't throw accurate
Night
punches
rain later
like
today.
many people claim on the
If
internet.
that's okay.
Rather, they swing their arms like a pair of
Lion.
sledgehammers and tend to
I wanna
aim
play
for
some
blows to the
Repo.
upper body and smacks
You
to the
wanna play
head.
that.
Considering that each arm and shoulder accounts for 15% of a gorilla's mass, and being conservative to play it fair, we can estimate an ape like Harambe could bludgeon arm strikes at over 6 to 12,000 newtons of force.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying they're just... I'm saying the gorilla's gonna grab your leg, gonna grab the leg of one of them and just start swinging it.
Repo later, or after this?
After this.
Force. Enough to crack the skull with a well-placed swipe or break many ribs. All this in a matter of a second. Not to mention the ability for the gorilla to wrap its entire hand around our relatively thin arms and legs and yank them off the socket with pretty much low effort. Our good friend Riot, meanwhile, does have some boxing experience under his belt.
Yeah, see, he's above average male. I'm sure he loves to hear that. But above average. He's got boxing experience. He's relatively fit.
The average human can throw a swing of about 750 newtons. Technique and strength play a huge factor, with slugging boxers able to produce multiple times that force in repeated tests. Our test subject here was able to produce an impressive 1,000 to 1,300 newtons of striking force. Kicks would also be a valid option as well, as long as whoever winds up that kick doesn't mind risking it all on attack that could severely backfire. At 2,500 to 3,000 newtons of force with one well-placed kick, is this enough to incapacitate a gorilla though? Really, the only near-effective placement for these blows would be on the skull. This maneuver is mostly inflicted on the zygomatic, parietal, and occipital bones, jaw, and neck. On a gorilla, this would land here. With far superior bone density at about 3 times thicker and more dense muscle padding on its face than humans, it's likely that this blow would just piss off the gorilla
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
even more.
Even
bringing
above
far more
average
adverse
strength.
effects. Lastly, let's talk about a weapon some may not even think about. Mass. Yes, carrying a lot of meat has its benefits. Mix that with a fast-moving speed and you have a lethal...
Well, they're using 100 of him in one of the tests. In that test, I'm pretty sure humans win. Because he's a slightly above average.
weapon of ass destruction.
Oh, if it was 100 construction workers, the construction workers win. I've seen some of those arms. And I've seen what they carry. They're their own gorilla.
Harambe weighs 200 kilograms, moving at an average speed
But
of
I
around
feel
20
like
miles per
if
hour.
we're just going
Considering that the
base
front part of the
human
body will be
or
striking the
average
victim,
human.
and we're talking about 11,673 newtons of force.
If it's average men, you have to include the American man. And I'm sorry, but the average American man is not fit. I would say below average is most of America. And then there'd be old people home men too. If we're but they weigh as much as a gorilla eats.
110 to 117
That's
kilopascals.
unhinged!
Ribs fracture at 50 to 80 kilopascals, and skulls fracture at around 100. Meaning
That's what I'm saying. He just needs to swing his arm and he's killing. That's how strong their arms are. That's why I'm saying. Grab a hand. He's already killed 20.
You and your buddies happen to be in the way of an enraged gorilla, you would all go down like bowling pins with potentially broken ribs and air knocked out of you. That's a few riots temporarily out of commission in less than a second.
That's what I'm saying.
So, now that we've got our basic stats, let's begin to draw out our 3 scenarios. Riot. Species, Homo sapiens sapiens. Height, 1.8 meters. Mass, 90 kilograms. Reach, 0.74 meters, or 2 feet 5 inches.
Average fitness YouTuber. He's fit. Take that into account.
Striking force, 1,000 to 3,000 newtons. 2,500 to 3,000 newtons on a kick. Bite force, 198 psi. Harambe. Species, gorilla, gorilla, gorilla. Height, 1.78 meters. Mass, 200 kilograms. Reach, 1.2 meters or 4 feet. Striking force, a bash of 6 to 12,000 newtons. Bite force, 530 to 1200 psi with canine.
If they use the same Deadliest Warrior-like computer simulation, then I think the gorilla wins a lot.
So we have the king of the meme apes against our rioting army. From this perspective, it should be a pretty simple answer, right? Well, it gets a little more complicated depending on the scenario. Scenario number 1, the gauntlet route. In this one, we take the question as a gauntlet endurance match. Harambe is...
See, this is the thing that was always constantly changed. Was it gauntlet? Are they all fighting together?
Cornered.
If it's a gauntlet fight, I'm pretty sure the gorilla just wins. Because he doesn't even have to expend that much energy per fight.
Since the gorilla wouldn't initially see the humans as a threat, the first riot clone is tasked to provoke Harambe and strike for... damn. Hey, guys, are we really shooting this shit? No, seriously, we might get in trouble. Go on with the sin. He's just a clone. All right, yeah, got it. Wait, hold on. I think this guy was the real one. No, man, no, we don't. All right, so as we continue the sim with these clones, you'll find that even as the immortal unit Riot makes its advance, human anatomy and a clone of 200 pounds with less reach is just not going to cut it against an animal more than twice the weight and with many times the punching force. Our skull cannot handle this much trauma, and given that gorillas do happen to target the most vulnerable points in our body, we're practically cooked, with each clone getting an impact that would turn the underlying bone and organs into mush. At this point, Harambe knows what the next one will do, and without hesitation literally plows through without having to spend valuable energy and attention turning...
That's what I'm saying, he wouldn't have to do much, he'd just go smack, smack, smack,
and covering his flanks. Initially, this looks like a certain victory, but here's the catch. If the clone army can keep its wits about seeing themselves marching into certain death one right after the other, they actually might have endurance on their side. One major difference between Homo sapiens and gorillas is how we deplete ourselves from energy. Strength versus stamina is the name of the game today, and under the right circumstances, one may come out on top. Assuming that Harambe does use explosive muscle power burns all throughout, after maybe a few dozen fatalities, Harambe may feel the burn of fatigue and run out of juice to dish out heavy blows. From there on, submission...
I don't think he does. I think he gets annoyed later on to where he just smacks them. And his smack is really all that is required.
Holds and
hello there, short stinky fish rat gecko wormy gremlin.
Well, sorry. I swear to God, if you keep that in the video, lock on,
would be the next best option. This, however, puts our human subjects in range of, you guessed it, these. Now, it takes a lot less energy to bite down than to use an entire arm. After all, it takes very little bite force from a gorilla to kill a human, whether it's biting through the skull, neck, or severing an artery that would inevitably cause death. Now, it is possible that the gorilla may figure out that tearing up a human doesn't take that much energy. It may begin to dish out less stronger blows and conserve its energy. Now, it's important to note that against this kind of opponent, no amount of combat skill will help you in a situation...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're smart.
...where you're head-on against a gorilla. Attempting to block these blows is pointless. However, 100 people is 20,000 pounds of people, and despite claims that a gorilla would absolutely dominate in this scenario, at best we would have 100 dead riots and a bone-tired, close to dead from exhaustion Harambe. The meme gorilla barely wins this round. That is, if it decides to go berserk. But the other two come with a very interesting set of factors.
Yeah, I was about to say, the gauntlet is definitely on the gorilla's side, because they're smart enough to realize that, because they would start using less, because it would be slightly more annoyed each time. It would start using less force and just be like more flippant about it. Be like, get out of here. And then it'd realize it didn't need any energy really at all. And it'd just be like this. Every time one comes in, it would go smack.
Scenario number 2, the sane game. The
sane game. That one's the one where I'm like, it's 50-50. Because there's the argument that the gorilla just runs away. And then there's the argument where gorilla stands its ground and it kills enough, all the humans run away.
There is one thing, at least across a vast majority of humans and all animals, is that we don't like dying. Getting a game over from life is something every thinking animal almost always tries to avoid. We can see this in nature, and it's one of the biggest reasons having numbers on your side doesn't always guarantee you a win. Mother Nature already tells us how men versus gorilla would likely go. Hyenas usually have standoffs with lions. Wolves also have standoffs with grizzlies. And in theory, it would take around 3 to 4 of these to take down the big guy. But why don't they most of the time? Because it only takes a grizzly bear a few moments to seriously cripple or kill a wolf. And who is the next suicidal one who wants to come next? Scenario number 2 takes place in a wide room with enough space to house a brawl between 100 riots and 1 gorilla. The rules of engagement: no tools, no places to hide or climb, a flat arena with no terrain advantages. Here's where superior human intellect and that extra space
What's funny is if you include one tree, the gorilla instantly wins.
in our skulls comes in handy. Strategy. We asked Riot what his strategy would be and also surveyed a few hundred folks as to what they deemed to be the better strategy based on the most common tactics we were able to gather from the internet. The most popular and resorted to strategy was surrounding the gorilla and all going in at once. Initially, this scenario seems favorable to us humans, but we have a problem that may tilt the odds catastrophically. Something that, dare we say, the majority of people tend to ignore is factoring in self-preservation. That is, the act of tapping out of a situation when things don't look favorable. Here's how this works. The gorilla would obviously not be comfortable seeing that 100 humans are taking position around him, and then they all begin to rush. Any animal in this situation would immediately have alarm bells going off in its brain and activate fight or flight mode. This charge isn't going to register in the gorilla's brain as a giant group hug. So the gorilla here is already prepared to throw hands. And when it throws them, all strategy has also been thrown off the equation. Despite having a set plan to practically dogpile the gorilla, humans will not have the willingness to be the first 12 to actually undergo the 100% chance of getting pummeled into ground meat.
Yeah, first 12 are dead.
In all realism, it will actually look like this. And the gorilla here is already fired up. The preceding sequence of events will be described as an absolute slaughter, with demoralized humans running, trying to avoid being the next one mauled. Now, realistically, in this scenario, a gorilla does not have sufficient stamina to run around and chase every single one. It's likely that after the first 5 down, the people will back off, and in the act, allowing the gorilla to have a breather, regaining its stamina to fend off the next wave of suicidal riots who think their buddy is actually going to follow through with said wave. This confrontation will take hours at this rate. With every man down, the chances of taking out this gorilla and being granted an exit off the arena diminish greatly. With Harambe picking out random people off one by one, none brave enough to be the next to die. But at the end, after many hours, perhaps days, Harambe will come out as the...
That's what I was saying. I'm like, if y'all all surround it, y'all are just... You're thinking everyone's gonna keep going.
Undisputed winner of this battle, with the determinant
the last scenario is probably dedicated to that shit, and it's gonna be the humans.
Fear is one of those things that spreads. All it takes is one wimp, and then the sentiment multiplies. But
yeah, most... Like... The reason why I was saying we're overestimating humans is, even if you're dedicated to that shit, do you want to be the next death? You have no guarantees that you're going to be one of the people that survives if you're going in.
Pretend for a moment that this wasn't a factor, and we found a way to properly motivate the Riot Army to actually fight to the death.
Ron, where are you on this stance?
Listen, the bottom line is this. 100 men, assuming they're all healthy in their 20s, and they are going to be united, understanding that there's going to be collateral damage. A few of the guys aren't going to make it.
Scenario number 3. Absolute insanity.
That's what I'm saying. It's insane to think that all of those humans would be under the same thought process.
In scenario number 2, the big...
Well, no, he said it in the first 2. Like, the first one in the hallway, he said that's the closest humans come, because the gorilla's gonna tire out. He's saying using the gorilla's intellect, which they're known to be pretty smart, the gorilla maybe starts to realize he has to use less and less energy to kill them because of how strong he is. If he has that scenario where he starts realizing, I have to use less and less energy to kill them, like I could just reach out and go, boop, and that guy's dead, then the hallway ends in the gorilla. Like, I would say 65% of the time. Because it's one guy against a gorilla each time. Like, yeah, it slowly deteriorates him. But, like, I feel like the gorilla, knowing there's no way to back off, would still fight off. Like, he'd be dead tired. I feel like the last, like, 5 guys would have the closest chance of killing him. But, like, you gotta realize, how are you killing the gorilla?
"100 people is overwhelming. Even if only 20 to 30 engage the gorilla directly, the rest could support, flank, and subdue it eventually."
Here's the thing, though, with that, Angel, they just addressed that. All 100 going at him, he's gonna kill, like, the first 20. And that's gonna terrify the next 20. To, like, that becomes like a 60% chance they run away. And if they run away, if any of them run away, that starts scaring the rest of them. Because if you just surround him, the gorilla's going to go at it from the start. There is going to be no, like, first few hits for the humans. It's going to be dead. Like, what I'm saying is, yes, gorilla's going to tire out. Yes, humans have the advantage in stamina. But if you just surround him, if that's the scenario we're going with, the gorilla already knows what's up. And it's going to be able to kill a good percentage, at least 10% immediately, before you even touch it. And that's one expending of energy. And then that's going to scare a lot of people off. Because that's like, holy crap, 10% of us just died instantly kind of thing. Like, you gotta put in the fear factor. And in this scenario, the gorilla knows there's no escaping. Because it's surrounded. So it's not gonna flee. It's gonna go, time to put up or shut up.
Biggest weakness, ironically, ended up springing up out of our biggest strength. The big problem is that the humans were too sane, too aware of the brutal consequences.
Yeah, in a sane scenario where both are understanding of the situation, humans lose.
And decided not to engage.
A Caucasian thirst for glory. I will say that a good majority of them will have that in them, but they'll also understand that they're probably dead.
So, for this scenario, we'll fix that by injecting him and his clones with every psychedelic and stimulant drug known to man that...
Oh, the humans win. They're under cocaine and, like, all these other drugs. They have no, like, fear factor. Oh,
can
God.
Cause violent outbursts and hallucinations. Add that to the fact that Riot himself admitted that his self-preservation is practically non-existent based on his previous combat experience. This will be added into the sim. Now, with effectively an army full of coked-up bath salt zombies, we turned...
Oh, God, bath salts too? You've heard of Florida, man. I don't think it takes 100. I think it takes 20 or 30. They're just like, ah! They're all jumping at him.
The fresh army loose on the big, aforementioned 490-pound gorilla. The ape on high alert, and at this point realizing that these humans are not here to take pictures, gallops around looking for an escape, but there is none. At greater range, and with many times more powerful swings, the first clone is immediately pulverized, followed by the second, third, fourth, fifth. However, it is at this point where the surrounding sane humans shit their pants. Their pants, however, remain spotless, clean, and the clones fixated on one objective: kill ape. Fear is no longer a factor, and the 6th and 7th clone grab the arms. Another wraps around the neck, and the dog pile begins. In this state, humans would likely resort to more unorthodox methods of attack, meaning bites are more frequent, exposed fingers are bitten, and some skulls ripped off the neck. But the piling weight, increasing by hundreds of pounds each second, is too much to bear. According to our model, and taking into account the crushing weight of a select number of 200-pound riots, the gorilla would perish under the weight of around 5 tons of human, smothered without the ability to expand its chest cavity to breathe properly. But this did not come without a huge cost. Despite the crushing victory, the riots inflicted casualties on themselves too, with around 30 to 45 individuals trampled to death or crushed under the weight of their fellow maniacs. So, to finally answer the question, can 100 slightly above average people defeat one gorilla? No. Can 100 suicidal maniacs win? Yes. Going further, we estimate that 100 is not even necessary, given—
Yeah, like, if they're coked up, 100's not necessary. Like, no fear factor? If we don't include the fear factor, humans win 100% of the time.
In these specific circumstances, 30 riots with no self-preservation instinct might do the job.
Yeah! Like I was saying, 20, 30 people? Holy crap. If they have no fear factor, 100's overkill. I would immediately say humans if we said there's no fear factor.
Now we just have to figure out if any of the surviving clones are the original and get Riot back to his channel after the drugs wear off. Hopefully.
That is definitely vindication. Like, I was constantly telling y'all, in all the sane scenarios, gorilla wins. If we go and say, oh, no fear factor. Okay, yeah, humans win. Fear factor is extremely strong. Y'all don't understand how much self-preservation would color actions. Well, no, Jenny, you gotta realize, Rosa, fear factor is still a thing. It doesn't matter if they know there's no escape. That'll be forgotten in the moment. They'll be like, how the hell do I get out of here? Because they're going to see 20 people right in front of them die. If you take that out and say it's like one at a time, the gorilla's going to be very tired at the end, but he's going to win. Because, like, they're intelligent. They're going to use less and less energy and realize, I don't have to use all my energy. One guy cannot kill a gorilla. Because of how tall and how thick their muscles are, there's very little the one guy can do. So, like, it would get to the point where the gorilla would sit down and just, like, grab their head and throw them against the wall. That's dead. Next one. Grab the head, throw it against the wall. Dead. Grab the head, throw it against the wall. Dead. They would get into emotion and they would just start sitting and killing them. The all-at-once method doesn't work because it's going to scare the shit out of, like, half the humans. They have the intelligence to override that, but you gotta realize, this is average male. I'm saying about 50% of them don't do that. They just freak out. Because you gotta say, let's say 50% of them, from the start, can ignore the fight or flight. Adrenaline would kick in, but adrenaline is to help fight or flight, which you don't realize. It's not there to engage fight, it's there to either run away or go in further. You just saw 20 people murdered right before your eyes. Like, just blood, guts, everywhere, just went everywhere. Let's be honest, are you still running in? Flight, it doesn't matter that flight isn't an option. When you have adrenaline pumping through your system, you're not thinking straight. All you're gonna see is, holy crap, a lot of people just got murdered. I'm next. If it was veterans, like super strong military men and like people trained to know that you're gonna see death and stuff like that, yeah, humans win. I'm not debating that. If the humans are military men or like they don't have the fear concept, like they're coked up or something, humans win. But fear is an extremely powerful motivating factor. It doesn't matter if you previously knew there is no escape, you're gonna run. No. Even if they know at the beginning, there's no escape unless you kill the ape. Oh, that kind of rhymes. That's what I'm saying, Alan. 50% of them are gonna use that fear to their advantage. They're gonna use that adrenaline to go in further. But I'm saying, due to how adrenaline works and the fight or flight works, and we're saying average males and stuff, 50% of them also are going to be terrified as shit. The question is, like, I feel like there's a slight advantage on the humans if the first 50 are the scared ones that go in first. But there's still a majority of them that are running away. But if we're like, if none of them have the fear concept, if they all go in knowing they're gonna die, like, the majority of you are dying. You saw how, even in the coped up scenario, there was a lot of death. Well, the specialist was using the, not even including the fear concept. And also, they just did it scientifically. They just said, okay, in the first scenario, the gorilla's going to slowly understand that it doesn't need to use really any force at all to kill us. It's going to win there. It's going to be pretty darn tired, but it's going to win. I feel like the closest scenario you guys were hoping for was the middle one, where they all rush in at once. Well, in that situation, the gorilla knows that you're coming to kill it. It's going to go all out at the start and terrify a lot of you, because it's going to rip like 20 people in half. It's going to go all out. It's going to swing a body around and like murk people. It's going to do it. It will be looking for a way out, but here's the problem. Gorillas are just like humans. It has a huge self-preservation. If it looks and it sees it's surrounded, it's gonna know there's no way out. I'm saying pack tactics. They just addressed that. They said the reason why it doesn't happen in nature a lot of the times is fear. Even animals are scared. The one gorilla's gonna throw down because it knows there's no escape. Because you've surrounded it. You've given it no choice. That was the scenario. Adrenaline doesn't shut down the fear. It increases your capabilities. You stop thinking. So whatever you're predisposed to, are you predisposed to fear, running away or fighting? That's what it'll choose. That's why I'm being generous here and saying 50% of them don't run away. 50% of them do. Because adrenaline doesn't erase fear. It just increases all your capabilities and wipes out the mind, basically. So you stop thinking. So your 50% chance you're going to use your adrenaline to run away. And then there's the 50% chance that adrenaline is going to cause you to run in and fight. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm being generous and saying it's 50-50. I'm going to be honest. I'd say the middle scenario is really close. I would say it's like a 50-50 chance that enough people get close enough and enough people don't run away that they win. The last one is y'all's thought, where there is no sane factor at all. All of them are without fear. No fear at all. Just rah! No pain receptors. Rah! Yeah, humans win 100% of the time of that. You don't need 100. Like I said, and like they said, 30's enough. But I'm telling y'all, the fear factor is extremely strong. But if we go by the dedicated to that shit, we're still not working with, like, soldiers. We're working with average men. Yeah, sure, we could watch this. But yeah, I love this video. And yeah, we'll give it a watch, guys.